According to me, this again requires a revisit. And it is important for the federal principle to work, for the Supreme Court to say in unmistakable terms that, look, this bill is going to ultimately find its death at the president's door, because the ensured that your head of state remains in the saddle for 5 years. It's therefore very, very important to see that you elect somebody who is worthy of being head of state. Like, for example, Dr. Abdul Kalam. The Supreme Court will lay down that, look, it is only independent functionaries who are supposed to fill these great offices. Not the kind of people that we find today, like we have in Kerala, for example, where wholesale, when after you slept over these bills, you just give them back to the president. Now we come to the very interesting thing that I spoke about in the very beginning. What does a governor do when he assents to a bill? Now the governor, unlike the president, has 3 choices. One, he may either assent to the bill, or he may say no. In fact, he has 4. Or he may send it back with some comment. Or he may refer to the bill to the president. Now, only the second proviso to Article 200 gives us some inkling of what kind of bill should be sent to the president. Second proviso says that if any legislation impacts the high courts, then compulsorily it has to be sent to the center. That gives you some idea of what the founding fathers had in mind when they said it is this type of bill that is sent to the center, not every bill. But then we have a judgment of our court, unfortunately, in B.K. Pavitra's case of 2019, which says that there is no constraint on the governor. The governor can go ahead and refer every bill if he wants to the president. According to me, this again requires a revisit. And it is important for the federal principle to work, for the Supreme Court to say in unmistakable terms that, look, this bill is going to ultimately find its death at the president's door, because the president says no, that's the end of the matter. So it is only such bills as impact the nation as a whole that require to be sent, and not others, or which impact the judiciary, which is what the proviso says. So if you constrain this power to send to the president, then again we are back on the rails. Otherwise we are completely off the rails. If you have any governor in a state just wholesale sending bills to the president of India, who may then make legislative activity come to a complete standstill in an opposition state, where are we? So this is one other very, very important feature that we need to bear in mind. Now coming to the executive, the second great branch of government. We have a president who's the head of state. Now the president is elected, unlike a monarch. And the president is elected by an electoral college consisting of both the houses of parliament as well as the legislatures of the states. We are so concerned about the president as head of state that it is almost impossible to impeach him or her. Impeachment can take place only on the ground that he or she have violated the constitution. Ground is very broad, but you require a 2/3 majority of the entire house. That is the entire Rajya Sabha and the entire Lok Sabha. And what happens is, procedurally, a charge is preferred for impeachment by one house. That charge has to have the requisite 2/3 strength of the entire house. The other house then takes up the charge. And if it is found valid, then 2/3 of that house, entire, again have to pass it. Something almost impossible. So you have ensured that your head of state remains in the saddle for 5 years. It's therefore very, very important to see that you elect somebody who is worthy of being head of state. Like, for example, Dr. Abdul Kalam. There should be a healthy constitutional convention. presidents, governors, etc., that ultimately you elect and or appoint, because governors are appointed, persons only of unimpeachable integrity who then fulfill the various functions they're supposed to fulfill under the Constitution. And it is only when you have these people that they deserve this kind of protection, otherwise they don't. When you come to a governor, you have a very different scheme. A governor is not elected. Unfortunately, he is only appointed by the center. The article also says he is at the pleasure of the center. So despite the fact that he may have a 5-year term, it can get cut short at any point without reason. Now here again, there was a problem with the original constitution which the Supreme Court has tried to iron out. Because in a 2010 judgment, BP Singh's judgment, the court said that suppose you have got rid of a governor, which you are entitled to do, you don't have to give reasons. But suppose somebody comes to court and says that it is arbitrary, mala fide, then you will have to tell the court as to why you did it. And you better have a very good reason. Because if you don't, the court will then strike it down. And this notwithstanding that the pleasure doctrine applies. So it was one very important step forward in seeing that independent governors are not thrown out. The corollary, according to me, is equally important. That you must see that a person who is appointed as a governor in the first place happens to be independent. Otherwise, the whole scheme collapses. Because he has two very important functions in his own discretion, which is apart from various other functions. One is what I just told you about, how he assents to bills. And the other is equally important because he has to send a report under Article 356 to the center if there is a constitutional breakdown in the state. Now, if you have a governor who happens to be part of your political party who's just been kicked up for no other reason but that he should be somehow rewarded, then obviously you're not going to get an independent assessment under either Article 356 or under Article 200. So, the scheme qua governors also is fraught with a lot of difficulty. And I am waiting for the day when the Supreme Court will lay down that, look, it is only independent functionaries who are supposed to fill these great offices. Not the kind of people that we find today, like we have in Kerala, for example, where wholesale, when after you slept over these bills, you just give them back to the president.